This is the shore, and the waves keep crushing in.
Today with the Weil, who I met accidentally at the Jenny Wu gig. So, the Weil, where do you come from? And how did you start up? Classic journalist question. Here we go.
From a few bands all attached together. Yeah, so which started at the top with the Verugas, yeah, Rat's the singer in the Verugas, and our drummer Kevin is the drummer in the Verugas as well. We also attached another band called War Wound. War Wound is Rat again is the singer in War Wound, and I play the drums in War Wound. Damien, who used to be a member of the Verugas, and Sacrilege, he's in that band, and Ian Glasper, the author who wrote the books, also from Stamping Ground, Flux Ping Indians, Decadence Within, he's the bass player in there as well. So we're tied to a lot of bands, yeah. So
were you first all tied together as punks, or were you just musician rotating?
we started in 1979, yeah. So the Verugas formed in 1979.
Where?
In Warwickshire.
Warwickshire. Levin Spa.
So the drummer from Discharge.
West Coast.
Huh?
West Coast.
It's on the West in
West
England,
Coast, yeah.
The kind of West Midlands
Yeah.
in England.
West
So the
Midlands,
drummer who went on to do Discharge was the drummer in Discharge, and Rat went to school together.
Yeah.
They formed their band together in 1979, and then from then on, kind of the history was made, sort of thing, you know. And Discharge did Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing record, which is a huge record. And then the Verugas would have done, what was your first album? Bloodsuckers, yeah? So from them two records, everything else has followed, yeah? We're all the way back from 1979.
Sound. And you're from?
I'm from Newcastle in the northeast of England.
Where did you both meet?
We met through punk.
Yeah.
Gigs, festivals. Bear in mind, when you've been involved in punk for as long as we all have, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
You know, all over the world. It's just a case of time, isn't it?
mean,
The longer you're around, the more people you meet, the more, you know, the better you know the thing. You know, it's the kind of beast that is. It's punk. We come from the punk world, so. And in 1979, and right through, I suppose, the 80s, where I came from, the punks and the skinheads didn't get on. They hated each other.
Yeah, that was the...
And that was a long time ago. And I think as times marched on, you always separate the negative element from the positive element in any kind of factions or whatever. So the negative element went their way and the positive element went their way. And I think the music scene, I suppose, the musical aspect of kind of who we are is kind of amalgamated.
brings everybody together.
It's kind of been brought together. And I think some of that is numbers. The another thing is that, especially in the skinhead world, because there is a negative element of the skinhead world, it made it really hard for the more positive element of the skinhead world to get gigs, because they were all getting stereotyped and grouped together. So I think they had to make a conscious effort to part.
Yeah.
So you have got all the negative aspect of the skinhead world, which would be the people who are predominantly racist, and then the other side of the skinhead world who aren't like that, you know. And they had to make a stand, had to turn around and say, this is who we are.
Yeah.
We're not all one group.
No.
You know, we don't agree with them and their
individuals.
politics and so on and so forth. This is what we do. This is who we are. And because of that, they're like-minded. You know, they're like-minded. So then that element of the musical aspect thing just all kind of came together. This is what we've seen over the last 25 years, I think.
So it got more relaxed all over the last 20, 30 years?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I mean, now, kind of, at the end of the day, the musical style is irrelevant, because what you'll hear over and over again is people are very passionate about who they are, and especially musicians, it's just a manifestation of their personality. It's them just expressing their personality, sometimes their political views, but it's a kind of an outlet And that kind of is irrelevant what the style of music is, what the genre is. Everybody's quite like-minded in that respect. So these guys will play completely different music to us, but that's kind of a taste thing. Whereas what they're doing and their journey of being a band, how difficult it is to be in a band and keep it all together and keep it moving and so on. That's exactly the same for all bands.
Yeah.
We've just been doing it a long time, so kind of after 35, 40 years, it kind of becomes, it's not a way of life, it's just literally who you are, and it just comes natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of it. You'll hear punk as an attitude or skinhead as an attitude, but it really is. It transcends your clothes, it transcends your musical stuff. It really is how you express yourself, it's your attitude towards life and to other people. I'll see him and who he is, and he's an individual. We're not the same. We don't think exactly the same, but we'll find our like mind through our music and slightly through our politics, because our politics are very similar. And that's important. So how we manifest our friendship is through the fact that we play music.
I come from a former pirate radio station, and I wanted to ask you, I always have to ask those two questions. Did you start off as a really political minded person in punk? Or?
Not really, I mean, yeah, we didn't really know much about it. It was just shouting, shouting slogans and stuff. But eventually you got to hear about what the slogans were. Basically, you stand slogans, yeah? And then you got to understand what them slogans meant, you know what I mean? And you got more into politics, you know what I mean? We're not politicians. What was on the album, the Vile album, wasn't it? We are realists.
All we've done really with our new album. The thing about it is when you first get into the music genres, you're usually really young.
Don't want to be.
But when you're young, you're kind of still etching out your politics. You're still learning the world. You've got no emotional growth when you're a child. You don't really know anything. But then something comes along and it just hits you like a wall. And you just go, wow, I love this sort of thing, and you kind of go off in that direction. Sometimes it's the wrong choice to make, and sometimes it's the right one, But I remember in my time when I first heard Crass, Crass was such a huge thing for me, because they embodied everything, but I didn't really understand it. Not at first. It took me a long time to kind of embrace it and get it, and kind of. And when I speak with people from Crass and kind of have conversations with them about them times and what it meant. You need the human element. You need to sit and speak with people to kind of understand, because you can interpret it in your own way, but hearing it from the people who created it and talking about what their ideas were behind it, it really helps you to understand it in the way they meant it, and whether you agree with that or not. And I think kind of as you grow and you understand that politics is a part of who we are and what we do. We've always been a genre, if you like, that stood up and went, this is who we are, and we don't agree with that. We're not frightened to speak our minds. None of us are, But politics becomes an element of it. I think when politics becomes, it is just about politics, then I think people become very blinkered. And you need to be able to hear other people's points of view, and you need to grow as a person. I think that's what people mix things up in that way. They get really passionate about something and then they lose sight of reality with it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, how we manifest what we do is through music. So there's that element of entertainment, there's that element of coming together as a group of people who are like-minded. There is a political ideology, if you like, in there, and there's kind of also that kind of element of do something or do nothing, so we're all kind of still doing it. We're still making the effort to actually travel from the UK to wherever we're playing, and people are still making the effort to come out to shows, and we have that kind of relationship between the band and the audience, which you can't really have one without the other, and that kind of, when you start putting all of them things together and you bring them all, that's what a genre or a lifestyle or a way of life is. It's an amalgamation of all those things. In my opinion, anyway.
But do you have, like now for you it's like just kind of routine now, but do you have sometimes this the punk scene was once more bigger, or when it started off they had this like more in
It's just
rebels?
different. It's just different.
It's just like progressive or regressive. It's just changed, doesn't it?
You've got to remember, when we grew up, right, in the 70s and the 80s, the world was a different place. Still the same in some regards, but the attitude and the way of life was different. We never grew up with the internet, and we never grew up with I suppose, what... now everybody's got access to everything. They've got access to information, they've got access to material things, and it makes, I think personally, experiencing both aspects of it, I think it makes people a little bit complacent, a little bit easy to do nothing. They take things a little bit more for granted, considering when we were young, we had fire. We had fire because we had nothing. Literally
so the teenagers are quite boring now?
I don't know, because I'm not a teenager, I'm a 50-year-old man, but you'd have to ask them that. But for me personally, when I look at my generation when I was 16, and I look at the generation now who are 16, I see two very different groups of people. Yeah, and only because we live in a different world with regards to communication and technology and availability, access to things, information, learning. I mean, people now are better musicians, they're more well informed than we were when we were children. You know, they've got access to politics and they've got access to sociology and psychology, they've got access to education and music in a very different way to what we had when we were children. We had access to literally nothing. So everything was a discovery for us, you know, until we left our hometowns and went and saw how somebody else lived in, say, London. I didn't know what London was like, and it was totally different to what it was like in the northeast in Newcastle when I was a child. But nowadays I can go on Google Earth and look at Botswana, you know, or a street in Chicago. You know, I can see anything I want, and it's just different. It just makes things more accessible, but it would naturally change your attitude. You know, my attitude when I was 16 and a 16-year-old's attitude now is, some things are the same, but other things are very different.
What would you say?
It's the same generation, isn't it?
Would you say hip hop is now the new punk?
In some ways, yeah. In some ways,
You think so?
I think, because if you think of punk as an attitude, and you look at the DIY aspect of things, I think the young people of these, the music's irrelevant. The attitude, the aggression is what it's all about, and me being interested in hip hop and looking at the underground, not the commercial shit, because commercial shit's commercial shit, but the underground stuff. You know, I hear kids talking about their life, talking about what it's like to struggle with nothing, and talk about politics, talk about religion, talk about sex, all them sort of things, and people be very candid about that, you know, and I think it's brilliant. I love it. You know, I love the fact that kids are getting up and doing something and speaking. That's what's the most important thing, you know. And the music's different, but I think the ethos is exactly the same.
And have you ever been squatting?
Squatting?
You know?
No. Played loads of squat, never done it myself. No.
What, like lived in a squat?
Yeah. Like,
no. Never. We come from the UK and it's a different environment, so if a building's empty in the UK, it's within 5 minutes, you know, it's all locked down and then it's somebody else has got it. Property in England moves very quickly, and it's a small country, so, and the way the government works with regards to that is, it's really, really, really difficult, and it's really rare to find a squat in the UK.
I did squats in London, in the old military station, in the station before Wembley.
Yeah, I know that.
Wimbledon.
Yeah, I know that. How long ago?
That was 8 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. But I remember that. London's probably one of the few places left where you do see them, but very rarely. I don't know if you know much about, heard much about squats in the UK.
The guy from the UK subs did.
I stopped.
Yeah.
A lot of them did, yeah. Well, it's got squad, yeah.
Yeah.
Still on, playing around, playing still doing it quite all the time, aren't they?
And we play in squats around all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the
That
world.
you know, especially in Europe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They play.
Before we go straight back into the interview, I'm gonna play you difference of an attitude in like a big, clean venue to like, you know probably the Kirby. Kirby. Yeah. When you'd go to a Kirby concert, everybody's like, "Roar," and no matter what age. And lately I go lots of metal concerts, and they're really huge show and tight. And the people are more tight.
Yeah.
They don't move.
Yeah.
Is that
usually better within the squat scene? I used to find, certainly during the 90s, the squat scene, you used to play one, you always knew it was going to be a good night.
Yeah.
I mean, we played 96 as the Barukas, and we came on to a Revolta. We played at a club in Berlin called SO36.
yeah.
Yeah, we played there, and then straight afterwards we catch a taxi.
Yeah,
So
they
we caught a
play
taxi, and then went to play with Police Bastard at the Copi, and the Copi was a far better gig, and we knew this was going to be straight away. Just because it's the Copi and the reputation.
I kind of think that squats are where people are. It's not just about somewhere to stay. It's about there's a lot of things going on in a squad, and it's quite a holistic place. Yeah, there's so many things happening in there.
Yeah,
and I think they just take that attitude to everything.
Yeah.
So whether they're quite passionate, you're talking about passionate people who are prepared to stand up for who they are and do stuff. They do get things done.
They're more loose.
I think they're just more. They know what they want. They're more together, more organised, and more relaxed because of it. There's more confidence and more faith in themselves as people. You know, they're quite passionate people in the squad. So we still play a lot of squats, like I said, and we go into places and people have to work hard to make these things happening. And obviously, often a lot of the times, you know, in the face of the local authorities and the laws giving them a hard time. You know, you have to do it. You have to do it. You know, I mean, they're amazing places, squats. They really show how the ingenuity of people and the passion of people. I think I love them. Sometimes they can be quite colourful places, but they're brilliant. I love them, you know. And I think as long as there's a real grassroots punk scene, there'll always be squats. You know, there'll always be squats.
Like the guys from Children of Men.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know the movie?
Oh yes, I know. Yeah, I know that.
Like the old anarchists.
Yeah.
Punk scene is more relaxed than the society.
I think it's
Or
just.
are they just coy?
I think the punk scene is. It's a bizarre animal because it's one of them sort of things where it talks a lot about DIY, about be yourself, about attitude, but it's very fiercely protective of its boundaries. But no matter what,
What's the boundaries?
well, people can be very, very particular about what is punk and what's not punk. Yeah, but at the same time, tell you can do what you want. But they're still telling you can do what you want. So
That's the political.
It's a
people
big
coming,
contradiction
yeah.
in terms. The whole thing is it's very ambiguous. For me, after like I say 40 years or so, I think you meet people who do what they want, when they want, how they want. That's as close as you can get to being free, isn't it? As close as you can get to it, you know. And
Can't always do what you want when you want.
and that's
Happy days.
happy days, you know. And I think when you're in the squats, that's probably as close as you can get to freedom, you know. You know, you're flying in the face of the law, doing what you want. You know, there's no regulations and stuff, you know. People get together and they'll organise for the sake of keeping it alive, but other than that, you know, it's as close to freedom as you'll find, you know. And that's, I think, what's special about it.
Sound. What's your latest? Just to give me a short promo.
Short promo of the Vile, yeah?
Yeah.
The Vile are a band based in Nottingham, UK. They were formed by Rat from the Verugas about 6 or 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And not too long ago. I think the first lineup of the band would have, Rat was singing for Discharge at the time, so I think it was Tez in the original lineup.
No, Tez wasn't. Tez joined later. It was Benny, Bino.
Yeah, Bino, who is in,
Yeah,
in Berlin, yeah.
Benny, Bino, Sean, and Ben.
Yeah. And they got together to kind of bear in mind that the Verucas are a very established, well-known band within the punk scene, and I think, talking to Rat, it was about experiencing that grassroots feeling again, starting from scratch with a brand new thing that wasn't.
Yeah.
Because the Verucas is such an established thing.
So you already think you are in the Verucas and you play a Verucas song. The next song you write is a Verucas song, something like that.
No, it's kind of like the Vile is a complete separate entity. It's a thing that starts from scratch.
Yeah.
You know, at the bottom of the ladder and works its way. I suppose up in some respects of getting established as a band. You're always going to have, people are always going to recognise Rat through the Verucas, that's fair enough, right? But at the same time, the Vile has had to put the work in to be able to get out there and do gigs and record and be a band just in their own right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, it's exciting to, after 35 years to be able to turn around and say, yeah, let's do that. And
new
fair enough,
challenge.
we're all old bastards and we've all been playing punk for a long fucking time. Yeah. But
still,
at the same time,
exciting,
it's different and it's nice and it's, you know, it's an opportunity for guys to get together and have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, have a good time and call each other names and laugh at each other, but more than anything, laugh. You know, laugh, have some fun. You know, and like I say, we've been doing this for such a long time now. For me personally, I couldn't figure out another way. Maybe there is, but I couldn't figure out another way of kind of manifesting what's inside. You know, what's inside is to play music.
It's nice when we go home and sit home and do nothing, but then after 2 or 3 days, you can't do this to your life.
It's boring.
Boring. I love sitting home doing nothing, watching telly all day. For 2 days I can do that. Then we move, next film. The third day comes, start getting, you know what I mean, thinking about things and gigs, and then it goes back to...
You have to write it out.
Yeah, then it goes back to the square. I'm going to write a song. I'll be back in about an hour or so. And it gets back into that night. You know what I mean? We should go stir crazy. I always go, that's it, nothing the weekend, nothing for all week. Lovely, great. Sit there.
And we're playing now.
No, watch crap on telly.
We're playing now.
But then it gets to the last one.
9
You start thinking.
what things now.
With what song do you open up tonight?
First song is Amor and Greed.
Give me the first 4 lines,
Put
please.
us off society, get fucked. That's it, yeah.
Time to take a real hard look.
Yeah.
Sorry, no,
Time to take a real hard look, yeah. Okay.
thanks for the lovely chat.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you. You take care.
Good to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Nice one.